At the start of the new year, I wanted to do something different. Originally, the idea was to review LarryBoy episodes of VeggieTales in the house after reviewing League of Incredible Vegetables, but seeing that talking about these episodes are easy and that they won't be considered a full-on movie review, I decided to use this month to talk about these episodes and get them out of the way so that I could focus more on giving you the League of Incredible Vegetables review. Now, this will be like Doug Walker's Disney Summer reviews, where he talks about a Disney movie for at least 5 minutes or so. So that's how I'm going to do this month of LarryBoy Vlogs. For this month only, we'll be looking at the legit LarryBoy episodes from VeggieTales in the house. We'll do 1 or 2 of these a week because there's a handful. Like, there's about 10 of these, I think. Now, we're excluding VeggieTales in the house because there wasn't much to say about LarryBoy in that spin-off series, and plus, we covered much ground in the second LarryBoy Purgatory video. So without further ado, we're kicking off LarryBoy Vlogs Month with For the Honor of LarryBoy. I'm not gonna lie, this episode was surprisingly good. I mean, some of it was awkward. Well, we'll get to that when we get to that. But when I say surprisingly good, I mean it didn't rely on a group of heroes or had really bad writing. Well, don't get me wrong, the story is meh. It starts off with Ikebeezer, Mr. Nezer's replacement character, getting a Segway in the mail, but the machine goes out of control and clearly forced slapstick, causing him to get stuck in his chimney. So LarryBoy is called in to save the day. In fact, they take some time to show him suiting up and racing to the rescue in a rehashed wannabe Larrymobile. Ugh. But Ikebeezer is stubborn, and he says that he didn't need help, and he gets extremely rude with LarryBoy, upsetting the cucumber superhero. But when a supervillain named Motato kidnaps this rich guy, in fact, everybody in this episode points out how wealthy Ikebeezer is. Like, we get it. He's the guy we're supposed to be saving. So despite seeing the man for who he really is, a big fat meanie, LarryBoy rescues him anyways, and things are good between the two characters. For the most part, if you watch later episodes in the series. So where does this episode fall short? Well, first of all, Ikebeezer was the worst thing about this episode. His problem is that he won't stop complaining about things. Now, I don't know if the writers wanted to model him off of somebody like Clint Eastwood from Gran Torino or whatever. I mean, he does tell LarryBoy, "Get off my lawn!" So the takeaway is that he's not an interesting character if he's gonna act that way through the entire episode. I mean, honestly, I wanted to watch him stay kidnapped so that he could realize something and be like, wow, I was being mean to people. And I should behave myself so that people can help me. Even after LarryBoy saves him from Motato, there's no change in him. He's still the same mean person that'll yell at somebody with the drop of a hat. Second of all, the villain isn't that interesting either. I mean, he's not that bad per se, but he's not interesting 100%. Motato is a deformed sweet potato hell-bent on taking over the veggie town, that he decides to attack a rich old guy first because apparently, I don't know, Ikebeezer is the most important person in town. Like, they don't really say how important he is, but they do show a news story of him later on. By the way, they sure picked a really good picture of him there, him yelling at somebody. Man, he's worth saving. Now, Motato is what many people say is similar to Awful Alvin because of the facial features and the fact that they're both villains. He also has a set of minions known as the Radishes or Rads. Well, that's what he calls them. And he's voiced by Rob Paulsen, who has a large resume in his voice acting career. I mean, I recognize him from Animaniacs and some of the Land Before Time sequels, just to name a few. And, get this, he even voices Ikebeezer. But the problem with Motato is that he seems phoned in. Like, for example, when he first introduces himself to Ikebeezer, he sounds like he's reading off of a teleprompter or flashcards, I don't know.
I am Potato, and I am the most super of all villains. And I am here to take all your nice stuff.
Like, that may seem like a turnoff, but after that, the voice acting is fine. Like right after Ickabeezer tells him to get off his line. But when it comes to having something to work with, especially since this is a Larry Boy episode, this was what we got. And finally, the costume design. Now, I talked about this in a past video, but I'm gonna bring it up again. The decision to update Larry Boy's costume was out of nowhere. When I first saw the concept art online, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Like, there was absolutely nothing wrong with the original costume. This one just seems generic and of the times. Now, one of the flaws that I pointed out was how easy it can be to recognize who's wearing the costume if the face shield was off. Now, I guarantee you that not a lot of VeggieTales fans had requested this change, but part of me was curious to see how this updated design would do this hero justice. And to be fair, this change introduced us to some good ideas. The aiming peripheral in his helmet, his ability to fly. Although being in the air was no problem in, say, Larry Boy and the Bad Apple. And I like how the suit lights up at nighttime. So part of me still longed for the retro, but another part of me was curious to see the possibilities of the new design. So I was kind of split on that change. So okay, that was all the bad stuff. How was this episode good? First of all, it was great to see Larry Boy again because this spin-off series came from the heels of VeggieTales doing away with their original character models in exchange for new ones. So technically, the League of Incredible Vegetables was the last time that we got to see him like this. But regardless, Larry Boy works alone in this episode, which is great because the concept of being a part of a League of Heroes was way too cliche. Also, the lesson was decent. Be good to people even though they treat you badly. This is basically customer service 101, because anybody can be like Ickabeezer and just yell at you. I mean, that's sadly how the world is. But Larry Boy learns this lesson even though Ickabeezer still tries to be the tough guy at the end. There's also a pretty good song where Bob and Archibald are begging Larry Boy to save the day, and that's where the message of the story is enforced, with one of the lyrics being, "We're not always grateful, but we trust you'll uphold your honor code." Kinda like, I'm not always grateful of the choices made to go with certain Larry Boy projects. Because believe me, there's a lot of bad ones. But I'm still a Larry Boy fan. I'm still here. To me, this was a much needed message to push for better Larry Boy stories. I don't know if that was the writer's intention or not, but still, this song really spoke to me. Towards the end of the episode, there's a pretty cool action scene, but before that, we have Potato threatening to pull out nose hairs. Okay, that's weird. If Ickabeezer didn't give him the code to a safe. Okay, first of all, there's cleverly weird, and then there's stupidly weird. Don't cross the stupids. But there was plenty of action afterwards to overlook that bit of awkwardness. So overall, this episode was harmless, only because it wasn't as bad as League of Incredible Vegetables and the final episode of the Cartoon Adventure series. But it wasn't as impressive as Larry Boy and the Bad Apple. I mean, like I said, there were some awkward moments, but at least there was still effort put into the episode. To this episode's credit, it would have been more half-assed, but thank God it wasn't. Because when we get to more Larry Boy episodes this month, you're going to be wishing that we were still talking about this one. So stay tuned for the rest of Larry Boy Vlogs Month. Thanks for helping me out with the index cards whatsoever, Critic. No problem.